The uses of film. This film is going to be short and it's going to be to the point. All good films are short and to the point. We've probably got about maximum of 6 minutes for this film, absolute maximum, and you're probably going to be fast forward it on YouTube after about 3 minutes. If you weren't involved in the project, you're probably going to think, what's that about, and skip straight on. So one of the first things about using film is you have to know your audience, you have to know who you're making your film for and how they're going to encounter it. I don't think it's going to get 55,000 hits on YouTube unless I have a heart attack or, I don't know, my dog comes in and pulls a funny face. So this film is probably been made for the people who've worked on the CAZ project and maybe a few people around the edges who are interested in using film and the visual in academic research. There's a thing within this project which is about fragments and capturing aspects of life, either through taking ethnographic field notes, observing, writing, capturing them on your smartphone or with a camera, and those fragments for me remain fragmented. I wanted to do this film because I didn't really want to write and I wanted to do something that was a little bit different. I wanted to make something that raised some of the issues and use some of the footage that we've taken over the past 18 months and have a conversation about how we can use film within research, but how we can use film generally. Gave parents flip cameras. They use these cameras to record their own children and other people's children doing activities. We also gave the children a flip camera and capture different perspectives of what was happening. One of the interesting things, I suppose, about this footage is it was very, the footage from the children and the parents, is it was felt like it was coming from within the activity. It also, when we sat down and watched it, it also made us think about authenticity, what was actually being captured and what was being missed, and the inevitability that you cannot capture everything within a video. And this asks the question, well, what is it that we do capture and how many real choices have we got to make about what is captured? Into a space where there's lots of activity going on. There's no single view of that activity. There's multiple views of it. Every single person or even animal or even object in that room may have a position on what's happening in that space. So it's a sheer impossibility to capture everything. Video can capture some things. Video can capture the visual feel of a place, and it can trigger a memory for people that were there. It's very different for people who weren't there, who didn't attend the session, and it can also be manipulated to give very different views of what happened in a space and to evidence very different perceptions of what was happening. So for example, within the videos we took of the castle building, there are children running through the castle, but there are also children on the edges, on the periphery, who are much more comfortable sat with a parent cutting out a shape or making a mask and don't want to enter into that space, that childhood space of free play. We didn't capture much of that on video because it wasn't the thing we were looking for. Young people. We've also talked a lot about participatory research and visual methods, and we've talked about what constitutes data and what's useful in terms of ethnographic research and film. What we haven't done much about is talk about how to make a film that people would like to sit down and watch. As part of the project, we got quite interested in ethnographic film and capturing a feeling for a moment rather than capturing a narrative or using the footage as what filmmakers call cutaways to illustrate a point. We went on a trip to the park and I took my big camera with my long lens and tried to capture moments or fragments that made us think about our trip to the park or remember the trip to the park as a young person. Sand on our toes or sand between our toes, piles of taken off shoes, cupping sand and passing it to a friend, sharing food. All these things seem very significant on a sunny day at the park in Rotherham, and to capture them on film seemed like an interesting thing to try and do in terms of capturing a shared experience. So what is film good at? Film is very good at capturing people's opinions. So I'm speaking to the camera now, and in a way I'm not reading a script. I'm being quite honest. I'm sat on my own in my dining room, and I'm speaking about what I think. And you can look into my eyes. Well, you probably can't look into my eyes, but you can look at my face, and you can work out for yourself how honest I'm being, if I'm being sincere. If I was a great actor, I might be able to act in sincerity and appear sincere, but most people don't. Most people, when you put a camera in front of them and ask them a question, they see it as an opportunity to lay testament, to say what they think and to be honest. The camera is sometimes called the third person in the room. In this room it's the second person, but still I feel like I am giving myself an opportunity to say the things that matter. And I hope when you watch this, there'll be a cutaway in a minute, but when you look into the face that's speaking, you connect to that face in a different way than if it was a transcript of an interview or if it was a written text that I produced, and that is a very powerful aspect of filmmaking. By the time we got to the end of the project, I'd kind of gone off taking my big camera. I was kind of busy doing other things anyway. I was building a project. I still probably have 3.5 hours of footage taken from various different cameras, and lots of that footage tells the same message: children playing in spaces that we've built. One piece of footage stands in for another piece of footage, and I think this is the problem with filmmaking, in that it is an artifice. It's a creation. At the very point you point the camera and you press record, so it's a very, very subjective medium. And I think that in terms of the messages it can give very subjective messages. And it does this with visual, and it also does this with narrative, and it also does this with the context of how the film is watched.
Anyway, how are you doing? I'm all right.
It's asking a question of what do these films that we're trying to make do, and is there a way of doing something different which allows new horizons to open up? And I think we're asking lots and lots of questions about that. We're not kind of bringing that together in a place where we say, well, what's next? What do we do with this? You know, we've got issues around film. We've got issues around videoing people, and the fact that when they come to the camera, they really want to give you what you want, and they often do, and you want that, and you need that for a certain type of film. You've got issues with the way people watch or don't watch these films, in that they're not so often not that interesting. They often don't hold the meat of a story or the meat of a conversation or the meat of the research. They end up being a kind of PR activity. So we have an issue with these films that are being produced all the time, that it's a kind of default position. People are making these films and they're showing them and people are watching them, but what are they actually doing in terms of research? And then we have the flip side of that, which is using visual data within more conventional research to trigger conversations as a kind of starting point, and not actually using that visual filmic experience or style or potential to generate new meaning with people, to share with other people, to share with audience. So it feels like there's a lot of potentials that get closed down by a set of clear expectations, and also there's a set of expectations that constrict what's perhaps possible within the medium and within the new spaces of digital production.